Hello, I am Blarchario, and I played through Pokemon Infinite Fusion using a team consisting entirely of Dragon-type Pokemon. What is Infinite Fusion? I'm sure you've heard plenty since it's been really popular recently, but in case this is your first time, it's a fan game based on the Pokemon Fusion generators that were making the rounds a few years back. You can fuse any two Pokemon together, and it combines their types, their movesets, and their stats. This time I'll only be using Dragon-type fusions, thanks to my friend for suggesting his favorite type. Also, if you look here, you can see that one possible fusion has a white silhouette and the other has a green one. The green silhouette means the fusion has a custom sprite out of over the 10,000 custom sprites made by the amazing spriters from the Pokemon Infinite Fusion Discord, link in the description. The white silhouette means it's usually a gross, automatically generated fusion akin to what you would see on the generator websites. I will only be using fusions which have a custom sprite. If a part of the fusion would evolve and make a non-custom sprite, I'll have to find a different partner to fuse my dragon Pokemon with. One last thing, since dragon Pokemon are pretty rare and there's barely enough in this game to make a full team out of without using duplicates, I turned on wild Pokemon randomization so that I could have a chance to get a dragon type before the first gym. With all that out of the way, let's get started. I start out by naming my rival Ice Guy for some reason, because dragons are weak to ice, I guess. Don't worry about it. I also randomized gift Pokemon just to make it a bit more likely I can get a dragon type, so my starters turn out to be Ghastly, Paris, or Torchic, so of course I'm choosing Torchic. Ice Guy takes the other two and fuses them together, which is really cool since he ends up keeping the fused starters throughout the whole game. Anyway, I beat him to a pulp, deliver Oak's parcel, and move on to trying to find some dragons. I don't find any dragon types until Route 3, where I fortunately find a Bagon fused with a Marill. If I couldn't find any dragon types before Brock, I would have to start over and try again, so I'm thankful I found one on my first go around. This Ledian was a gift from a mailman in Viridian City, which would be a Pyukumuku if I didn't randomize gift Pokemon. From here on, I will only be using dragon types for battling. I unfuse the Bagon and check if it can fuse with anything I have, which it cannot for now, so I'm rolling with Bagon while I catch more Pokemon. I find a Smeargle fused with Shinx in Viridian Forest, and go back to the Pokemon Center to test it out. Turns out I can fuse Bagon with Shinx to make a Shygon, an electric and dragon type. However, I need something else to counter Brock's rock Pokemon, so I go out to catch some more. I catch a Budew and a Paris, finally setting on a Pagon, a bug and dragon type. Turns out Route 3 also has Gibble, which I catch with my last Pokeball. I end up fusing it with a Magikarp I found in Viridian Forest. I figure that's enough for now, and head into the Pewter Gym. The cool thing about Infinite Fusion is that the gym leaders only let you use as many Pokemon as they do, so me finding 2 Dragon Pokemon is perfect. The thing about Dragon Pokemon though, is that they learn Dragon Rage, and pretty early at that, a move that always deals exactly 40 damage, so the first couple of gyms are kind of a joke. Brock is felled in just 2 turns, poor guy. I spend a bit of time in front of Mount Moon smashing these rocks, which is an alright way to make some money early on in the game by selling the gems and stardust you get. Later in the game you can get fossils from smashing rocks, but I think you have to get to a certain point before they start showing up, but don't quote me on that. I catch an Aeron in Mount Moon, then head back to the PC to switch my Gibble over to fuse with that, making Giron, which I think should be much better than Gibble and Magikarp. As I go back into Mount Moon, I miraculously run into a shiny Azurill. Shiny rates are apparently the same as current day Pokemon games, about 1 in 4,090, so that's pretty lucky. I catch it and put it in the box and continue to forget about it for the rest of the playthrough. Sorry. I got bored with the Paras Bacon fusion, so I go and fuse it with a Curlia I found instead, which turned out pretty cute. After running off Team Rocket in Mount Moon, I picked up the Dome Fossil because Kabutops is infinitely cooler than Omastar and continued to Cerulean City. Running into Ice Guy again, he comes with a team of Nidorino, Pidgeotto, Mankey Rattata, his start a fusion of Paris and Haunter, which unfortunately does not have a custom sprite, and then just an Abra. Dragon Rage and Rock Slide deal with them all pretty handily. I slam through the Nugget Bridge in order to get to this Professor's Aid, who gives me an invaluable tool for this playthrough, the Poke Radar. This lets me check every route in the game to see if there could be a rare spawn for a Dragon Pokemon, since there are so few available. You can see me using it here to uncover all the silhouettes at the top in the Poke Radar. I didn't recognize one of them, so I kept running into Pokemon to figure out what it was. I recognize now that it shows Horsea in the area, which does evolve into Kingdra, which is a dragon type, but I didn't remember that until I already had most of my team filled out, so oh well. As the time turns to day, the Pokemon available in the grass changes to the daytime set, which reveals that there are Axew here. I must not have noticed right away, so I go back into Mount Moon and find that there are dino here as well. Turns out I'm just getting really lucky being able to find so many dragon types so early in the game. I go back to the PC and fuse this dino with a Honedge I found to make Hono, bringing my team up to 3 Pokemon. I enter the Cerulean Gym and try to Dragon Rage it down again before realizing I'm a bit underleveled and fail the gym a few times in a row. After leveling up a bit and grabbing the SS Ann ticket from Bill, I come back to destroy Misty. After that, I make my way down to Vermilion City and start to clear out the SS Ann. My Gibble evolves into Gabite, which does not have a custom sprite fused with Aeron, so I go to unfuse it and turns out I have nothing else to fuse it with. I find a Crocorock and make a Crocobite, which honestly looks pretty cool. Imagine if Garchomp had Moxie. Yeah, this thing destroys teams. Anyway, I continue through SS Ann until I run into Ice Guy again. His team is mostly the same, except now his Abra evolved and he fused it with the Staryu. His starter fusion evolved into Parasect in Haunter and now has a really cool custom sprite. I grab my Cut HM, then head into Lieutenant Surge's gym. Bad gym puzzle aside, this gym goes through without a hitch due to Crocobite's busted Moxie sweep. Afterwards, I head back to earlier routes with my Pokeradar to find any dragon types I missed and find a Trapinch outside the Pokemon League gate. I put it in my team, but I'm not using it yet, since it's not a dragon type until it evolves into Vibrava, so it's just absorbing experience in the back for now. I make my way blindly through Rock Tunnel because I don't want to spend any time looking up where to get Flash or doing quests to get the Lantern item. Thankfully, Rock Tunnel is relatively short. Partway through the Bagon half of my Kurgon evolves into Shelgon, and I'm surprised it has a custom sprite, and it's still cute somehow. I do accidentally run into the side area where you would normally get Honedge, but thanks to the randomized gift Pokemon I receive a Mime Jr. instead. Finally in Lavender Town, I head west to Route 8 to search the grass and find a Dratini, which brings me up to 5 dragon types in my party, including Trapinch, which will evolve eventually. Unfortunately, on the way back to town, the Kirlia in my Kurgon evolves to Gardevoir and this fusion finally loses a custom sprite, so I'll have to unfuse it for now. At the PC, I fuse my new Dratini with a Croconaut I caught near the power plant, which looks pretty funny. I go get some DNA reversers to reverse the fusion, and I like this look a lot better, so I decide to keep it. I also have this Mr. Mime in my party to act as my teleport Pokemon, which in this game you can use the same as Fly to travel across the region a lot earlier than Fuchsia City. I go out to catch more Pokemon to fuse with Shelgon and find a Cottonee, and they make a pretty nice looking fusion. I head into the Pokemon Tower and fight Ice Guy again. He's changed his Pidgeotto to be fused with a Cubone, and besides a new Gyarados, his team is the same. I run through the underground tunnel to Celadon and meet Erica outside her gym to flush out Team Rocket from the sewer system. Hono evolves into Dono, and my Croconaut evolves into Feraligatr, ruining the sprite with this dopey Dratini face, so I fuse a Seal with Dratini instead. Then Dratini evolves into Dragonair, and the sprite is ruined again. However, my Trapinch finally evolves into Vibrava, which means I can finally use it in battle. After defeating Giovanni in the sewers with his cool-looking Haunter Kangaskhan, Lapras Rhyhorn, and Arbok Onyx, I grab the Self Scope and go back to the PC. I end up fusing Dragonair back with Feraligatr, but Vibrava seems to have some difficulty finding any fusions with custom sprites. Vibrava must not be a popular Pokemon with the spriting community, or I might just be unlucky with what I have available to fuse it with. I go out and catch a whole bunch of Pokemon with no luck with fusions, before I catch a Shedinja in the water in Pallet Town, which finally is able to fuse with Vibrava, and it looks pretty nice. Now that I have the Self Scope, I can climb the Pokemon Tower in Lavender and grab the Pokeflute from Mr. Fuji. The Eevee at the top of the building in Celadon ends up being a Chimchar instead, despite the fact that it's clearly an Eevee I'm walking around with for a second here. I head down to Erica's gym, which is now a maze, and I sweep Erica's team with only Dragoligator. What a beast. While I'm out looking for more Pokemon, Crocorock evolves into Crocodile, which again ruins the sprite, so while searching for Pokemon to fuse it with, I remember I'm in Fuchsia City and have the entirety of the Safari Zone to look for a ton of new Pokemon. I finally find an Axew and am able to fuse it with Torchic. I also remember that Horsey evolves into a Dragon type, so I catch one of those too, just in case. I finally have enough Pokemon to form a whole team. I also caught an Omastar in the Safari Zone, which I can fuse with my Gabite, so I do. Now that I have a full team, I make my way to Koga's gym, which for some reason in this game has 0 markings on the floor to denote the invisible walls. The Torchic in my Axew fusion evolves, making a default fusion sprite, so I leave and fuse Axew with Charmander instead. but that also immediately evolves into a Charmeleon, which also isn't a custom sprite, so I fuse it with Drifloon instead. After so many evolutions, I eventually get to Koga, and Dono defeats most of his Pokemon handily. After taking the Soul Badge, I make my way into Saffron City, and my Axew Drifloon evolves into an ugly Axew Driftblim in the fighting gym, and once again, I have to infuse Axew. Honestly, I'm thinking at this point, I should stop mentioning every time a Pokemon evolves and ruins its fusion sprite, because it happens quite often, so I'll only mention the Pokemon I use when fighting gym leaders or other important fights. Now for the most confusing dungeon in the game, Silphco. Mount Moon, I have basically memorized. Rock Tunnel can take a minute, but it's generally straightforward. But Silphco, I always spend way too much time here because of all the teleporters. It's just awful. At least my Vibrava evolves into Flygon, and the Shedgon that comes of it looks really awesome. After a good half hour in the building, we get to the top and fight Ice Sky, who has a Nidogeot, Tauros, Electados, Starbra, and Parator. We continue on to fight Giovanni in a double battle. My Gastar evolves into a Garstar, which works out a lot better than I imagined it would. Since I've ousted Team Rocket from Saffron, I head to the train station to ride to Goldenrod City to buy some evolution stones you can't get in Celadon. My Zweilous ends up not working with Doublade or Aegislash, so I fuse it with Lampent instead, which should work out as a great special attacker to offset the physical power the rest of my team is putting out. This frees up my Fracture to be fused with Aegislash, which, to be honest, most Pokemon fused with Aegislash will turn out looking cool. I also buy another Dusk Stone at the Goldenrod department store to evolve Lampent into Chandelure. I can't wait to see what Hydreigon and Chandelure look like. I figure I'm a bit over-leveled, so I decide to get Sabrina's gym out of the way. My Ajax here sweeps most of Sabrina's team with a couple sword stances to set up. After some cash grinding, I make it to Cinnabar Island, where I immediately am asked to surf to the Sevi Islands to stop Team Rocket. Before that, I spend a good 100,000 Pokeyen trying to change the natures on my Pokemon to be more beneficial, and I was just really unlucky. Good thing I farmed for that extra money. Shortly after, I make it to Mount Ember in the Sevi Islands and work my way through the tunnels. My Dragonair evolves into Dragonite, and the resulting Dragoligator looks very funny, but also very tough. We come across Giovanni and Team Rocket having captured Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos, and fusing all three together. We have to fight this Zapmolcuno as a 1v3 fight, which turns out to be a lot easier when you have had a full team of full Dragon-type Pokemon. Aegyorus makes short work of Articuno's head with Iron Head, Dragoligator takes care of Moltres with Aqua Tail, and Chandelus has Dragon Pulse to whittle down Zapdos. The fusion breaks apart and Giovanni runs away like the baby he is. Moltres comes back down to be caught, but it's just gonna sit in the PC, since using Dragon types is already kind of an easy mode for the Pokemon game. My Salamence Whimsicott fusion turned out to not have made a custom sprite, so I fused Salamence with Gardevoir, reuniting the two ever since Curly and Shelgon earlier in the game. I know it's kind of normie behavior to use Gardevoir in this day and age, but I definitely need another special attacker in my team other than Chandelure Hydreigon. I sprint through the Pokemon Mansion to find Blaine in the basement since I'm so close to the end of the region and I just want to get over with it at this point. But I forgot about this one trainer in the mansion, and it gave me a bit of a pause when I realized I named my Gastar Gaster because it was funny earlier in the game. But then I run into this guy with his own Gaster. After finding Blaine, I enter his gym. I totally didn't look up some of the answers because they're actually decently difficult questions compared to the original ones, but I am glad they kept the iconic Tombstoner question in the game. Continuing on, Blaine falls to my Gaster's Digs and my Dragoligator's Aqua Tails. I teleport straight over to Viridian to get Giovanni out of the way once and for all. I love this Rylax he has, it's so funny. Shedgon ends up taking out most of his team. Ice Guy outside the league gate has most of the same team except for a Rhyhorn and Magmar fusion, Tauros and Execute, which looks pretty strange, and his Starbra has evolved into its final form, Starkazam, which is kinda scary looking. Victory Road is always my least favorite part of any Pokemon game, so I'm just gonna skip it. Nothing really happens anyway. Time to take on the Elite Four. I stock up on revives and potions to heal up between battles. I've sort of unconsciously been not using items in battle throughout the game, and I'm not going to start now. Well, on to Lorelei. Side note, this overworld sprite looks like 99% like an Inkling from Splatoon, minus the ears, right? I can't be the only one that sees this. Anyway, she sends out Magong, a fire and water type. I try setting up with King's Shield and Sword Stance, but Magong sets up Hail and gets a burn so nothing comes of it. Dragaligator comes in and takes it down with Aqua Tail. Jingrowth comes out, an Ice Grass type. Dragaligator falls to its burn, but Chandelus takes out Jingrowth with one Flame Burst. Tentaster, a Water Ice type, comes out. I go with Shadow Ball since it's the same type attack bonus, but Tentaster outspeeds and knocks me out with Icicle Crash. I send in Gaster, whose Rock Blast takes care of it. Mambro, being Ice Psychic, is also weak to Rock Blast, as is Weirus, who comes in next, taking care of Lorelei. I heal up, then head to Bruno. I lead with Aegioris against Bruno's Electric Fighting Mavire. I try the King's Shield and Sword Stance setup again, this time working a lot better now that I'm not being whittled down by 2 types of damage over time effects. One quadruple attack Dragon Claw takes out Mavire, another takes out Marochan, a ground fighting type, and then Steechamp, a steel fighting type, comes in resisting both of my attacks, giving me pause. I decide to go for Iron Head anyway, gambling for a flinch, but almost one-hit KO it anyway. I keep spamming Iron Heads as Bruno wastes all his full restores until I can get 2 in a row. Back to Dragon Claw and Iron Head spamming on his last 2 Pokemon, and Aegioris sweeps his entire team. Against Agatha, I try the same strategy, but I get outsped and knocked out by her Mizmabat, a Ghost Flying type. I use Rock Blast to knock it out in one turn with my Gaster. Wobgar, a Ghost Psychic type, comes out, which is quad weak to my Crunch. Unfortunately, I forget Wobbuffet can learn Destiny Bond, and I knock us both out with that. Agatha sends out Umter, a Ghost Dark type, and we trade Ghost and Dark type moves with Chandelus going down due to being outsped. Salivor comes in and spams Moonblast to take it out. Snorgar, look at this dude. A Ghost Normal type comes out, and I just tried different attacks to see which deals the most damage and knock out with Moonblast. Gendoom, a Ghost Fire type, comes in and knocks me out, so I send in Dragaligator and destroy it with a Crunch since I wasn't sure if it was Ghost Fire or Ghost Dark at the time. And that's the end of the Agatha. Moving on to Lance, this should be pretty easy since every Pokemon on my team has Stab Dragon type moves. I heal everyone up, including restoring the PP on Aegioris' Sword Stance and King's Shield to try the same strategy. He leads with Dragados, a Water Dragon type. I get paralyzed unfortunately, but since Dragados uses Outrage, I get free attack drops using King's Shield every other turn, allowing me to set up for free along with Leftovers recovery. After boosting to +6 attack, I one-shot with Dragon Claw. Toganite, a Fairy Dragon type, comes in, which also goes down to 1 Iron Head, but it leaves me with a sliver of health left after a neutral Outrage. Tyrannodactyl, a Rock Flying type, then comes in and outspeeds with Brave Bird, knocking out Aegioris. I switch into Salivor for some reason and whittle it down with Moonblasts. Lance sends in Porydra, a normal dragon type, and I use Dragon Breath twice to knock it out. Typhnair comes in and finishes off Salivor, so I send in Chandelus. Finishing off Typhnair with Dragon Pulse, Lance is defeated. Since my Chandelus is 1 level away from evolving into a Hydreigon, I decided to just give it a rare candy so I can see what it looks like, and I'm not disappointed. On to Ice Sky, the final battle. Aegioris gets off a Sword Stance, but is taken out by a Sword Stanced Nidogear Earthquake at a sliver of health. Most of my Pokemon aren't very fast, so this looks like trouble. I send in Shedgon, but miss my Shadow Claw because of Nidogear's 1 double team it used, and Shedgon goes down in 1 wing attack of all things. Ice Guy's using some nasty tactics here. I send in Salivor to get off an Intimidate, and it lives in Earthquake so I can knock out Nidogear. Ice Guy then sends in Ripe and Mordor. Somehow he's gotten evolved all the way from a Rhyhorn Magmar in the 20 minutes it took to get through Victory Road. It knocks me out with the Drill Run, and I send in Dragaligator to knock it out with an Aqua Tail. Tautor comes in, and it's kind of bulky, taking almost no damage from an Ice Fang, because I thought it was part Grass type. Crunch deals more damage, and I live a Giga Impact to keep spamming Crunch and taking it down. Electados comes out, and it looks awesome. I just go for my strongest move, Dragon Rush, while it sets up Dragon Dances. It takes me out with a Thunder Punch, so I send in Gaster to take it out with a Crunch. Starkazam comes out, and Crunch makes short work of it too. Finally, I'm so glad to see that my rival's Starter Fusion Paragar has a custom sprite and it looks awesome. Unfortunately, it's not super strong, and so I take it out with some Crunches and a final Rock Blast. At last, I became champion of Kanto in Pokemon Infinite Fusion. To be fair, it was not that hard since Dragon-type Pokemon are a bit busted for the most part, they just take a while to evolve. This is my first mono-type Pokemon challenge I've ever done. It was pretty fun. I'm already raring to go on my next mono-type challenge, this time being the electric type. I'm thinking of not randomizing the wild Pokemon, but I will be randomizing trainer Pokemon, since it'll be more fun to see gym leaders use different types, so I have to be more thoughtful of what I bring into them. I'm also thinking of cutting out some of the filler and only showing you the most important things: evolutions, new fusions, gym and boss battles, and the Elite Four. Let me know what you think in the comments and what your favorite fusion was, either mine or my opponent's. Have a nice one.